Yes, we've started the session and I think we are live as well. Let me just check on the individual platforms too.
If you can just ping me the YouTube link to the video, I will quickly share it.
Yes, I'll do that.
Yeah. If you can just
The problem with this streaming software is that until and unless I start the stream, I don't get the actual link.
yeah,
So that's sort of
yeah.
really problematic.
Oh, I put it in the chat.
Sorry.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
No, the link is in the chat.
So Shweta, can you see? Have you opened YouTube or LinkedIn? Can you see the? Yeah.
Yep, I can see we're live on YouTube.
Okay.
LinkedIn, I've got the notification. Let me check.
Sure. This is something that happened last time, but it didn't work. So,
Okay, yeah.
are we live?
Suchita, your video seems to be a bit flaky.
I think I'll have to do with that because
Yeah,
okay,
I think
no
at
problem.
least your audio.
I think okay, perfect. Okay, then we can start off. We'll keep checking in between so we make sure that we don't have any glitches. Okay. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining our live session today. Today we have Nandita Jayaraj from the Life of Science joining us on a Saturday evening to chat with us and discuss her journey about becoming a science journalist and editor. According to me, she's had a very interesting journey and trajectory, as it is with any other science communicator, especially in India, because we don't have a path that is etched, and say that, you do this thing after that and you become a science communicator or journalist, right? So that way, all science communicators from India are very special to me and close to our heart. That's the whole reason we started out SciComm Souls, to voice out all their journeys. So it becomes less daunting for other people to follow this path, right? So that's the crux of starting SciComm Souls. And I am Suchita Champa, the founder of SciDio. SciDio is a platform where we are building an ecosystem for science communicators in India for upskilling, finding the best resources for science communicators, and also creating opportunities so that there are more ways science communicators can monetize and further in the near future can become independent or take this up full time. Right, so that's the crux of SciDio. Today we have Nandita Jayaraj, and do share your views about how you find this show, and also do spread the message. We'd really love to hear from you. What do you think about the initiative that we've taken forward? With that, I'm going to introduce Shweta Hegde, the co-host with me. So she's a student at the Regional Institute of Education, Mysore. We co-conceived this initiative, and I'll hand it over to her. Hi, Shweta.
Yeah, thanks, Suchita, and welcome, Nandita. I would start off by giving a brief introduction. I know Suchita already spoke a little bit. To formally introduce Nandita, she is a science journalist and co-founder of the independent feminist science media platform, The Life of Science. Previously, she worked with the Hindu newspaper and Brainwave Science magazine. Nandita also writes and edits children's books, and her latest being 31 Fantastic Adventures in Science, which I have, which she also co-authored with Ashima. So with that, welcome, Nandita. Welcome to SciComm Souls.
Hi Shweta, hi Suchita. I'm really happy to be here, and yeah, it's quite humbling But I hope that what I have to say will help some people.
Okay. So, how about we start off by talking a little about your journey? So, could you please talk a little about your path to becoming a science journalist? How did you start out?
Yeah. So I think like thousands of other Indian kids, I uh, finished school with a inclination, interest, and an aptitude for science. So automatically, I was told to take engineering or medicine, basically, and it I don't know it I somehow nothing excited me at all. Everything was just mechanical. I went for some crash course and some entrance exam for medicine and then engineering, and I didn't do well in any of them. And I did not really know what to do at all. I mean, it was quite a confusing time for me, but I did end up taking a BSc in biotechnology, which went okay. As in, I did well. I was a good student, so it wasn't very hard for me to do academically well, but I was quite uninspired, and I mean yeah, I didn't really feel any sort of love for science the way it was taught in my undergrad. But you do your BSc, and then there's nothing else much to do than your MSc. So I went on and did my MSc as well. And I think in my MSc, which I was studying bioinformatics, I had much better teachers, and I started understanding the subject a lot more, and doing a lot more self study. I think I was also a bit desperate because I was realizing that I had no idea what I wanted to do. So I was putting more of an effort, and I really started enjoying a lot of bioinformatics and genetics and those kind of subjects. And one thing I enjoyed. We didn't really have textbooks, so we had to read a lot outside, and I think we were starting to use the internet then. So I would, read up a lot, and I started getting interested in finding out about a topic, and I used to make notes. I really enjoyed making notes and sort of explaining these concepts and teaching my classmates and all of that. But still, I didn't really feel like I wanted to do a PhD, because that was the logical next step forward, was to apply for a PhD or go abroad, which a lot of people who could afford it were doing. I did not. I don't know. I felt very. I didn't really want to do that. So, oh, can you just give me 1 second? I'm sorry.
No problem. Just bear with us. Yeah,
I'm back.
please.
Yeah. So I'm actually at with my family at a place, at a resort kind of place in Kerala. So I'm also not where I'm supposed to be, Suchita, but thankfully I have good internet. That's something I made sure of. So so back to yeah. So what happened was, after I took a break here after my MSc, during which time I worked at a radio station in Chennai where I was, and that was my first exposure to the media world. And studying and growing up in Tamil Nadu, even though Chennai is a big city, it's very closed, especially for girls. There's not much of a independent life that you enjoy, and a lot of it's a very conservative city overall. So I this whole world of the media was completely new to me, coming from engineering, studying in colleges in Tamil Nadu. It was very liberating, and I really enjoyed. I mean, I realized that I did not want to be in a. I mean, maybe I was too restless, and I didn't have the patience to be in a lab doing research. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew that some parts of the media were interesting me. And that's when I found out that there is this. I can't remember how exactly I found out, but somewhere along the way, when I was thinking, I knew I did not want to be in a radio station for much longer, because I mean, I was basically
Were you doing science when you were at
not
no?
at all.
Okay, okay.
I was calling up celebrities, asking them for interviews so that the judges could interview them. I was doing all
Oh,
sorts of things. I was
okay.
hired to write for their website, but that's really not what I did. so so I knew it was not where I wanted to end up. So I would, start for the first time in my life, start looking into what I wanted to do and research about what are the opportunities available to me. And somewhere along the way, I found out that there's this thing called science journalism and science communication. But I quickly realized that there's no place in India to study that, and I was really done with. I did not want to apply abroad and risk spending a lot of money for yet another journey that maybe was not for me. So what I did was I applied at a journalism school in India, in Chennai itself, called Asian College of Journalism. And I applied there even though they didn't have a science journalism course. They only had a general journalism course, but it was only 1 year long, which I thought was which I thought that I could spare that much time to figure it out. And they did have electives that were science journalism and environment journalism and health journalism. So I made up my mind to sort of customize it for myself. That maybe I would do all my assignments on sciencey topics and choose these electives. So I sort of made that 1 year course into a science journalism course without anyone, without it actually being there. And that was really fruitful to me. And I think that to this day, that the fact that I did a general journalism course rather than a SciComm course or go the traditional science way, I feel really made me a lot bolder, because I was also not. I mean, I was very conservatively brought up, uh, and not, it was never encouraged for me to be bold, and also by this, let me explore that side of myself. And I think also that that has made me, my expectations of science journalism today have come out of, because I know what journalists are doing, I know what journalists are supposed to do. And so it's not just like, I mean, I so I mean, I do, I think my standards also about holding people to accountability and ethics and all of that have also been, are higher because of this brief period I had in journalism. But I
So,
did. Mhm,
so would
yeah.
you say that this course that you took up did actually make a lot of difference for you to differentiate yourself from just like a science writer to a science journalist?
Yeah, but I didn't really realize it was happening at the time, because there wasn't much dialogue on what is the difference between science journalism and science writing and science communication. It was all
Right.
kind of a blur. So today, looking back, I realized that it did, help me differentiate between what those
Mhm.
things are.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, that's wonderful. After this course, we know that you've done a couple of jobs before you started off the Life of Science, right? So you worked at the Hindu and for Brainwave, right? So how different was your experience in the three different places? Because all three are different kinds of outlets and their objectives are different, right? So how do you differentiate your experience in all of these places?
Yeah, yeah. Every place has been very different, and I think that I mean, the Hindu was a completely different atmosphere, because it was like a 150-year-old publication, and I was working in their headquarters, which is Chennai, and there were hundreds of people working there, and we were this complete, batch of newbies that were hired. And
Mhm.
so it was exciting, because it was a Hindu. So for the first time, my parents could actually, tell people that I was, doing something that seemed respectable. But I mean, I learned a lot, I would say, but I also think that it's hard. It was hard for a young. It is hard for a young person to thrive and to keep growing at the Hindu, because the way it was there, the way it was then, things have changed a lot since then, but you could do a very average job and just tick the boxes, and and B, it was kind of like a government job. I mean, actually, I don't know. I keep hearing people say this, but I have no idea what a government job is like. But in the sense that, you could just do the just do the bare minimum amount of work and stay there. People were there who stayed for like 30 years, 40 years, and there was this comfort that nobody really wanted to challenge themselves, and and it was also very there's a lot of patriarchy that I also faced there, because it was I mean, for sure it was heavily Brahmin dominated, it was male dominated, and you could there was this discouragement when any young person, especially a young woman, was trying to do something new or was getting the attention of the seniors. There were people who, were resentful for that. And that made you think that, okay, maybe, like maybe I should just sit back and do what, do what I'm paid to do. And which was not much, by the way. But, so it was, I mean, it got a little like, I felt like I don't know, it didn't feel so exciting anymore, even though I had really good teammates. So I actually worked at the Hindu at their children's newspaper. They had a children's daily newspaper that would go out. So I worked in a smaller team. So because of that, we were sort of insulated and we had a lot of creative freedom to do whatever we wanted. And I had an interest in SciComm for children, so I had a knack for it. So it was a lot of fun. But after maybe 1.5 years or so, it was getting a little like, I mean, I wasn't so in love with the job that I was not looking outside. So I always did have some antenna on what is going on. And after that was when I heard about this opening in this magazine called Brainwave from Ashima, actually, who is the co-founder of the Life of Science. So Ashima was the editor at Brainwave, and the reason Ashima wrote to me was actually again very serendipitous. It was because about 2 years back, the moment I realized there's this thing called science journalism, I had randomly Googled some places and somehow come across a list of people who had done a course in science journalism from India. And her name is AA. So she was the first person I managed to find her on Facebook. So I'd written to her all those years back. So she wrote to me then saying that I'm working at this place called Brainwave and we're looking for an assistant editor. And so I thought, okay, I'll check it out. And I applied for the job and I got it, and I was really excited. So this was again the commonality with the Hindu is that it was a children's publication, but it was a lot more. What do you say? Like they could really go wild because there was an art team and there was a tech team, and it was all just to produce this once a month magazine. So we had more time. We could do more, high quality content. So that was a more of like a creative wonderland for me. These really cool people, really imaginative people. So, I mean, that was another sort of world. And I think we carried a lot of values that we learned there into the Life of Science when we started out with that. Yeah.
Okay. Um, okay. Wonderful. With the Life of Science, you have, along with a strong component of science communication, you have a strong component of representation as well, right? So it's something that's beyond just science writing or science communication, right? So there are very few places or people who even report or discuss science and SciComm in such an unbiased or objective manner, like how the Life of Science does, right? So can you discuss how challenging that is with respect to even like sort of even from the stage of building your team, or how people receive it and all of that?
Yeah. So I think a large part of, the kind of stories we tell and how we've been able to tell it is because of who is telling these stories, and we've actively tried to look for to collaborate with people who we feel are the best people to people to work on these stories, or people who um, I mean, if we have only the same, if we only stick with our own networks, what happens is there is this comfort zone, and then you start creating these kind of, I mean, the same kind of stories which are not really challenging, not really asking, the difficult questions or looking at stories that, different ways. So I think we were very clear from the beginning that, I mean, it's evolved since then, but from the beginning, what we were clear is that was that we wanted to focus on women in science. So that's when, after that, we realized that it's women in science is not just this, this homogenous entity. There are so many different kinds of journeys within women in science, and there's so many other intersectionalities that affect each person's journey. So because we knew that we didn't think of it as political then, but there has always been this political element in the science reporting that we do, which is why we call ourselves a feminist science media magazine, which is kind of, it's not some. I used to be very apprehensive about introducing ourselves as a feminist science media platform, because I was always afraid that funding agencies or people would be wary of these tags. But since then, I think with my teammates also, and with a clearer understanding of why we're doing this and why we're calling ourselves feminists, I've come to sort of own this tag, and we see that it's not as bad as we fear. We think that if we get even a little controversial, or we mention anything that is not comfortable to speak about, then people are going to alienate us, and it's really not that bad, which is why I feel that there are so many there are so many kinds of platforms and so many kinds of places which for the amount of power they have, they can afford to be so much more political in their reporting, in their science communication, than they already are. And we are able to do it because we are independent. I realize that it's not easy once. So it's a real, I mean, the drawback of being independent is that we are uh, scurrying for funds every year, and it's really, that's a not nice part of it. But then,
Tell me about it.
yeah, you will know. Yeah. So we've never said completely no to if somebody wanted to support us in a sustained manner. That hasn't happened. I don't know why that is. I don't know if it could be because of the kind of work that we do. But yeah, so because a lot of the bigger names in SciComm and even institutional outfits have, there's a lot of pressure. We all know that it's not easy to to work with institutions. So I think that's why we have had the freedom to pursue a lot more stories than many others. And yeah, we're just running away with what we have as long as we can get away with it.
Sure. So, I mean, as anyone paces through the different seasons that you've taken so far, so in the beginning, your focus was on women in science, and then later on, you sort of niche down the repertoire and said you have the representation of the underrepresented sectors as well, not just women, right?
Yeah.
So, and which is one of the main pillars of focus you have at Life of Science, right? So why do you think that is needed? I mean, this could be a moot point for me and you, but it's very important for people to understand why you're
Yeah.
doing this.
Yeah, I think it's really important because we're still in a position where just yesterday I was reading some article. I think it was about an interview with somebody about, and they mentioned the IITs and how there are very few, uh, very few. Yeah, it was actually an article about VCs, venture capitalists, and how there are very few women VCs in India. And one of the reasons they said is because even if you look at IITs, the number of girls passing out are very few, but this will change. This will change. So my friend forwarded me this, and I got so irritated because it's the same thing you hear everywhere. All you hear is that, I mean, my maybe really bad analogy was that it's like somebody asking, why hasn't it rained, or why is it raining so less? And we're saying it's because there are very few clouds. I mean, it doesn't answer your question. It's like, of course, there aren't enough women here because like there aren't enough women here, but why are we not? I mean, how is it that such highly educated people are not, feel not, they're not, they don't have the instinct to think about, okay, but why have we not had women? Why are there so few women at this
Mm,
stage? And it's not like it's anything new, right? If you want to take the IITs, then it's the only reason that there are more women studying in IITs is because they've had I think now it's 20% supernumerary seats or something. So it's not that it's organically happening. It is organically we're not getting more gender diverse people, population in science. So I think that there is still that we need our public needs a really really big shake up to realize that why it's not something that you can brush off and say that it's only a matter of time. You guys are just talking about gender, but give it time. You can't force these things to happen. That's not the case. And I feel that uh, these stories are what we need to help people understand that it's not that women, I mean, I mean, not only women, like you said, it's so many different marginalized groups. It's not because they're not studying hard, or it's not because they're not able to perform in exams that they're not doing well. It's because there is discrimination. There's so many kinds of ugly realities that we think don't exist that exist. And I feel that it's in when you're talking about science, something like science in India, which is so heavily unequal. There are just so many kinds of inequities that it makes no sense to talk about science as it is. Like I do not feel that there can ever be like a pure science story, like on a SciComm platform that only talks about science. And because science or research is a product of the people who did it, and the people who did it for a reason. Maybe they did it. Not everybody just wakes up with passion and stars in their eyes and goes on to do what they're meant to do. There are so many very human made factors that cause you to do the kind of science, that cause you to win the kind of awards that you do. And unless we have honest reporting reporting that acknowledges the context in which this kind of research happens, then I think we're just digging ourselves further into this pit of complacency, which won't let us progress really.
You've put it in such a nice way that I really want people to sort of understand that it's not just the science; it's even the people that are doing the science that needs to be highlighted, right? So what are some ways people can make this change happen? So, right, it could be at an individual level, groups, colleges, universities, or even just like system at the system level, right? So, at a government level. So, what are things that you think can be done in the short term and long term that can sort of help mitigate this sort of bias or opinions?
No, that's a big question. And I mean, we could, I think, like, books can be written about this topic.
I know,
But
I know.
yeah, but let me maybe narrow it down a bit and say, from like a person from science media, I think a lot can be done if scientists and the media work together. And there is more of a allyship between scientists and science journalists. And scientists should realize that science journalists are trying to tell their I mean, are trying to tell their story for a reason, not for. I mean, of course, we also have to do it because that's our job, but there is, I mean, unless these stories are told, then things are not going to improve. So we have to, scientists have to also partner with journalists and enable us to tell a lot of, whether it's right now the whole NCBS controversy that is happening. I think, in fact, this is actually a good example because I'm part of a small group of scientists and journalists who are, very, it's a very sort of a fraternal conversations, and there is this dialogue going on between the two camps, because of which I think we're seeing some really nice reporting that is happening on the topic. So we need more. We need to. I'm not saying, of course, science journalists are also not. Uh, I mean, by far, they're not completely, innocent angels. We also need to sort of understand the pressures that, scientists face. But actually, I think that's less of a problem. Because I think if anything, psychommers and science journalists, because we are also brought up with so much of this, worshipping of scientists, that I think we think a little too much about their feelings. So a lot of us are so afraid to step on toes that, we don't ask these sort of questions, or we back off very easily. So I do, for science journalists, sort of be a little.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Nandita. I think we can't hear you well. You're breaking off.
Oh,
Yes, just like the last few seconds of discussion.
Yeah.
okay, yeah, just one.
Right. So, but um, with all of so, Shweta, did you read about the NCBS fiasco? Did you read the publication that they had? I mean, I was all like head over heels to sort of know all the details. It was so. I mean, I wanted to know both the sides of the story, and I really like how the reporting is happening right now. Especially, I think Santon is leading the reporting, right? So he's been in touch with a lot of people, getting in touch with the student and all of that. So yes, I really like the way media is handling, because I know I can call it generalize and call it media, because not a lot of people are reporting it, but people who are reporting it have the right sense of angle with which they want to shed light on all the areas. So that's
Yeah,
something
and I
that's
can
very
tell you that
nice.
even Shantan is doing a really good job, and they were really putting a lot of hours into reporting this, which is not it's not exactly the
See
most
that.
easy thing for a early career science journalist to do, because they're going to be stepping on a lot of toes. But they were able to do it because they talked with so many scientists, they talked with so many other journalists. So it really was a very a patient way of reporting it, which, I so the focus wasn't so much on we should be the first to report it, or they should be the first to get it out, but on doing it in a way that doesn't harm, the people who are most vulnerable in this situation. So I think those kind of
Indeed.
yeah, so that you need to have that sensitivity.
Yeah. Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much, Nandita, for sharing your thoughts on how people can become, better science journalists, and how. And thank you for sharing your journey. Right. So we'll just take this entire show on a little lighter note and go through like a small rapid fire for you, right? And then we'll proceed with the next parts of the show, right? So. Yeah, of course, there need not be like one right answer, but we'd really like your thoughts on that, right? So let's get into it then. One, two, three, and go. Choose from one of the dream careers for yourself. Like, do you want to be a chief editor in one of the mainstream media houses to expand their science section, or be an editor in chief in one of the independent media houses focused on science, news, and content?
After working as a team, with Ashima side by side, honestly, the idea of being a a sole chief editor terrifies me. But I would definitely be chief editor and then instantly hire a co-chief editor of the independent one.
Okay.
Um. Okay. Yeah. But since this is a rapid fire, yeah, I'll stick with that.
Okay. So when did you realize that science journalism was your calling?
I think it was. Oh my goodness, this is a hard one. So just.
It's okay. Go.
uh, I think actually it might have been at the Hindu. There were a couple of, I mean, maybe two full-time science journalists whose work I really liked. It was a very innocent sort of hero worship kind of thing, but it really did make me want to do
Okay.
that.
Okay. What was something you had to unlearn as a science student to become a journalist or like a science journalist?
Yeah, probably think that science has all the answers. That's something
Okay.
I
Perfect.
have to
If you,
learn.
okay. All right. So I have one very difficult question for you. If you choose to gift the Life of Science merchandise to someone, which one would you choose? The TLOS calendar or the book 31 Fantastic Adventures in Science?
Oh, definitely the calendar because it's a lot more. I mean, the book was a bit more like me and Ashima, but the calendar, especially this year's, really I feel espouses a lot that we stand for. So it would be the calendar.
Wonderful. So, what's the first thing that comes to your mind when I say editor?
Um, Backstage.
Okay. Would you prefer science writing for adults or writing science for children?
I would say adults, um, but it would always be in a way that is accessible by. I mean, I think that good science
Uh,
journalism, even for adults. Oh, am I not audible? Can
I
you
can
hear
hear
me?
you, Nandita.
Oh, okay, okay. So
you got yes, yes, yes.
okay. So I was very quickly just saying that
Okay,
I think good science journalism for adults would be good for a 10th
okay.
grader and above. So,
Wonderful, wonderful. So, what's one thing you would like to change in your career path, if there is any?
uh, salary. I would
Wow,
like
that's something
one
I didn't
to
expect.
elaborate.
Wonderful. Okay, so what if the Life of Science did not exist? What would you imagine yourself doing right now?
I don't know. Often wonder. I think that maybe I wouldn't have made a very bad, researcher. Maybe if I had the right teachers earlier on. Maybe I
Okay.
don't know. Yeah.
Okay, so what's one thing you'd wish to make, what's one change that you wish to make in the current science journalism space?
I would. Yeah, a lot. I mean, starting to sound like a broken record, but a lot more grants for independent science journalists.
Okay, and the last one. So, do you think your upbringing actually made you take a decision to actually change your path and voice out opinions and represent the underrepresented more? Was that something one of a big factor for you?
I think it was maybe my later upbringing. It had a lot of people I met, a lot to do with the people I met in my early adult life rather than my upbringing.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much, Nandita, for participating in
Thank
this
you.
rapid fire.
This was a
Let's
very deep rapid fire, Suchita. Unfair.
you know,
You asked me like worldly questions.
60 minutes is
Rapid
such a
fire
short.
could be like chocolate ice cream or vanilla ice cream. That I can answer.
So actually, Shweta and I always, sort of discuss if this actually should be a rapid fire or not. But the reason we sort of kept it this way was because we want to, crunch your journey in 60 minutes. And I know that's impossible, right? So that's the whole reason. But yeah, anyway,
So
so
this is
thank you
fun.
so much. Yeah, yeah. All right, then let's move on to the next section. Shweta, go on.
Okay, yep. So now we are moving on to the thought process segment, wherein we take our guests' latest piece or work and try to break it down and highlight some bits of it. So today we are going to be talking about the Life of Science Indian Women in Science initiative, where they highlight Indian women in science on Twitter, on social media each day. At least they try to. So let's start off by talking a little bit about how you started the initiative or the inspiration behind it, though it's pretty clear, just for people who don't know.
Sure, sure. So, I mean, it's actually very simple because on December 31st, 2020, Vidita Vaidya, who is a neuroscientist at the IFR, she alerted us on Twitter to a thread that was just completing by this biologist in, I think he's somewhere in France, Alexis Verger. So, he was just concluding his 366 women in STEM hashtag on Twitter that day, and Vidita was like, I think she said something like, I'm sure lab hopping could do something like this for India. So it was that idea. So I knew that if we don't start this thing tomorrow, then we're gonna have to wait the whole year. So I was fairly confident we could do it because we've interviewed more than 200 people, maybe probably a lot more, but we haven't really counted. And even if we just relied on people who were on our site, I was pretty sure we could reach 365 without a problem. Uh, so we quickly started. We didn't even have time for like a team meeting and discussion on how we would go forward, which is why I said try to highlight, because I thought in case my team the next day say that okay, this is a horrible idea, I can always say, oh, sorry, this isn't working out. But everybody was also super excited about it and encouraging, and I have to say, I think it was only the first two or three people that came from our website. After that, there was so much interest and people were recommending names to us. So we opened this nomination form, and since then, it's been almost entirely nomination driven. So I think
Wow.
we crossed 200 days sometime last month, and we have more than 250 nominations. So I think we're going to reach the target easily. The main motive of this was to show how, we're really beyond the stage of conference organizers and people saying that there aren't enough women. If we could do this with such, it takes up maybe like 5 minutes of each of our days to uh, like to locate somebody, and nominations are pouring in. So we need to, I mean, just to basically show that women scientists are everywhere, even if they are only 13% in our country. There is definitely enough for us to make sure that we have, if not a 50-50, then at least a little lesser than that representation all over the place. And if you look through these women, so we don't have much of a criteria on choosing who we feel is worthy enough for anything. We only try to make sure, I mean, we do a bit of fact checking and all of that and make sure that everything is okay. But otherwise, we're just trying to cover as many different areas as possible, as many different types of institutes, and trying our best to focus on a lot of early career people, even PhD students. Sometimes a lot of their advisors nominate them. So it's been really cool because it's like this, it's like this one positive thing every day, because there's so much. It really makes you believe that like this whole allyship and sisterhood is in science, and everyone's nominating each other, and it's a real good thing that I think if people think that TLoS covers too many depressing topics, then this is the one thing that we do that makes everyone happy.
Okay, awesome. So, if you were to start 365 Indian Women in STEM all over again, what was something that you would like to change?
Hmm. Actually, nothing very major. I think it's going really organically now, and it's if we had planned too much for it, or if this was overproduced, I think we would maybe lose the authenticity of this. And so, I mean, one thing for sure is I wish we could somehow source better pictures and have a better graphic, because it would be wonderful at the end of the year to do something with all these pictures. Like Alexis Berger made a collage of all the
Hmm.
photographs that he'd created. So I don't know if we can do that, because sometimes the photos we get from websites are not great quality. And also sometimes I wonder if, you know, like, I don't know, sometimes I can't find a good picture. I can't find any picture of a person. And I never want that to be a reason to not feature them, right? So maybe the picture, so I'm not entirely convinced that I would change that also, but it would be cool to have maybe illustrations, or definitely to do something at the end of the year with this.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
so we
That
still
would
have
be.
time for that. Yeah.
Hmm. Okay, cool. So, if you can you talk a little bit about any impact stories or someone candidly reaching out to you because of this particular initiative? Something, yeah.
Um, Yeah, one impact is that we are, because we've, got to know of some in the nomination form, we ask people, why do you think this person should be nominated? And some people are really descriptive, and we've come to know some really amazing stories of people we've never heard of also in science, which we are pursuing as part of season 6. So, in fact, the very first story of Rohini Londe.
Hydrogen, yeah.
Right. Well, she was also one of the 365 women in science. So we've picked up on a lot of people who we're hoping to pursue and, develop. As far as impact is, I mean, actually, yeah, just today when I was sort of thinking about what to talk about, I just Googled 365 women in science to find the first ever tweet. And but I found that a lot of people's lab websites, in their awards and recognition sections, they've actually mentioned this person was mentioned in 365.
Oh,
And then now people have, institutes have started retweeting and congratulating their scientists for being featured. So I was like, oh my god, like, did they just make this a thing? It's become, it's become like something we entirely made up, has become something that, people want to be on. So I guess, I mean, that means that it is sort of, it's starting to matter, and it's making people feel good and motivated to do their work, which I think is pretty cool.
okay, great. I mean, that's so good to hear.
Yeah.
Um, so, what have been your sort of learnings, takeaways from this particular initiative? Is it like, if you have some spontaneous ideas which come up, would you be willing to take those on board more often, or what have been your learnings?
Uh, yeah, I think one is it's sort of validated the way we work at the Life of Science also. We are, three, or I mean, four full-time people right now. And there's a lot of freedom in that, we do collaborate on everything, but we always give each other the freedom to take off with an idea that maybe one of us is more convinced about at one particular moment than the others. But, unless there is some active opposition or some real reason, we really give each other space, and, let us all sort of own this lab hopping thing. So I think it's, which is kind of scary sometimes, because especially, with me, I mean, me especially, I'm a little bit, more, I like to be in control. So it has been challenging for me to sort of, let things go with another person. but that's paid off, repeatedly. It's paid off in so many different ways. So I think it's really important, if you are in any sort of leadership role, to have that faith and that take risks. Not that maybe your teammates, it's not that they will never make mistakes, but you have to let them make mistakes. And then, because if you look back, for sure you would have made mistakes. Yeah, I have made many mistakes myself, so I owe it to them to give them the space to do that. So I think, yeah. So as far as starting things quickly, I think there is some merit in that. Though dialogue is important. So.
Right, right. So, have there been any other executional challenges with this initiative?
With 365 in
Yeah,
specific.
yeah.
Yeah, it's not really easy because of Twitter doesn't let you schedule tweets schedule a thread. So
Uh,
we have to do every days on
every
that
day.
day. Yeah, so that is, in fact, as you say this, I realized that today's, or maybe tomorrow's, I haven't yet prepared tomorrow's 365. So even though it doesn't take a whole lot of time every day, it is still something, even if I can't take, like, we can't not do it for a whole week or something, that disrupts the rhythm. So that is hard. But now we have, like, I have Aishwarya, who's handling our website and social media. So thanks to her, we're kind of like seesawing. Sometimes if I'm not available, she will make the tweet, or if she's unwell or something, then I will post the tweet. So we have a bit of division of labor that is there. So that, I guess, would be an execution challenge, but it's really sort of streamlined over the months. And we have kind of this routine that we follow, which we sort of work like a well-oiled machine. So it's been, I mean, a big part of doing 365, which was very clear in our minds, that we did not, because this is not like work that anybody is sponsoring or anything. So and we've recently really come to realize that we have to stop doing things for free, and we're not really doing that anymore. So one condition that I made to myself with 365 is I don't want to spend more time than is needed on this. I want to do this in the simplest way and not overcomplicate things. So we've really not. So because of that, the way we've done things in 365 have been kind of minimal, and it's working. So there's no real need to, just
Mm.
jazz it up for the sake of it. So yeah, so I think we've been successful in that it hasn't made us like break our heads at any point.
Great. Okay. So, last question. Would you continue it next year as well?
For sure, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I would like to do something a little new, make it, I mean, we do have some ideas. So maybe not exactly the same, because we always like to do something a little new, but for sure, I think this daily thing has, something to it. I mean, I would encourage, even maybe Cyrio can do like a 365 science writers in a year or something, and I'm happy to
Absolutely.
help you with that.
Absolutely, I'm certainly gonna get in touch with you because getting things in process and all of that, streamlining things are going to be taking some time, and now we're still in August, so I think we have a good time, enough time
Yeah,
to prepare. So that's a good idea that you've pitched. So let's see.
if we could do it in one day, I'm sure you can do it in with 1 month.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right.
Okay, then. Thank you so much, Nandita. I think we will wrap this section up and open it up for question and answers. Um, so, one question we always ask our guests is resource and recommendations for aspiring science communicators and journalists. So, what is your go-to recommendations, Nandita?
It could be like for
Um,
science writers or editors. Yeah.
I wish I was more prepared. I'm sure I'm going to think of a ton of things later. I think, I mean, basically for me, my what I rely on is just to have my eyes and ears open at all points and sort of listen. If not that everything is a story, but this it really helps to sort of understand what's going on and hear and not turn away people. When we get a lot of emails, uh, sometimes which sound unrelated to us, we think that why are they writing to us, but there is a reason people turn out to help. I mean, they may not understand, like the fact that they don't know where else to turn to also is some it means something in itself. Like they don't know, there is no institutional setup for people to come and air their woes. So I think I mean, this is a very unhelpful. Maybe afterwards I can also share some more helpful sort of resources. But this is more like just like a tip. Resources. I mean, when I was in my early, when I was getting into science journalism and everything, I used to have these. Like I used to keep going to Nature News and and I used to like start blogs and take a random paper and try to report it. So I think that to keep doing something, to keep creating something is definitely something that is worth doing. And if you want to get into science journalism, then definitely look at uh, more mainstream platforms which do science journalism well, because that's where science we should really get science to general public and not just to scientists. So yeah, I'm sorry, I can't think of any specific names right now. Maybe because I'm like not
No,
reading much, and yeah, I don't think I'm upping my skill enough
no
for the class.
problem.
There's been no time.
Okay, so write a lot and also read a lot of what you would like to
Yeah, and
write.
listen.
If yeah,
Yeah.
listen. Okay, got it. Okay. So one other question I'd also like to ask is, could you spend a little time talking about any memorable encounters in your career so far?
With anybody, or
Anybody? Yeah.
It could be just a conversation, or it could be a project, or anything of that sort. Yes.
um, yeah, I mean, maybe I can like talk about something that happened recently, which is an acquaintance of mine who is a scientist. She messaged me recently, and she was in a lot of she was going through a lot of distress because of the way basically she had been she's the only woman in her department, and she had been for an event asked to be in charge of planting trees, whereas everybody else had science related jobs. So she was kind of upset and feeling very gaslit because nobody else seemed to see anything wrong with this, and whereas she felt like um, it was it was like very it was she was very highly uncomfortable with this, and she wasn't
I
sure
think
what
you
to do.
even tweeted about this.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
So I tweeted about this with her permission, just to ask her, would help you if you got sort of a sense of what other people are feeling about this, because she was feeling conflicted of maybe, why is she feeling this way? Is it wrong of me to feel this way? And then there was just so much response from so many people who are like, why are you even asking this? Of course it's wrong. And so much of support for her. Like, we would, please tell her we will support her if she takes this up, or she lodges a complaint, or if she comes out in the open. And I shared these responses with her, and that really, like, that gave her a lot of encouragement, and she eventually did complain, and it wasn't so smooth, but in the end there was an apology, and at least I think this department got to know that it's not okay treating people this way. And so, I mean, it's these little fights that I think that good parts about social media. Not everyone has the agency to put themselves out there, and not, and how much ever wokeness we see on Twitter, that is really not, one thing that people were not understanding is, are you serious? Is this really happening? And to be honest, this happens everywhere. There is, it shouldn't be surprising us. We're really in this bubble if we feel that most people are, woke, or most people at least optically want to seem like they are fair. So I think, yeah. So I mean, that was like sort of a memorable recent work personal life related thing that happened.
Right. Even I see it almost all the time. I mean, with events at college, let's say, you mostly see, I mean, I don't want to talk much, but um, and it doesn't always be that we have to speak up. It's that they should, I mean, it should also come from the other end,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
We can't always be like, okay, this is something wrong and you need to change. It should
yeah.
also be something that they, yeah.
Yeah. So even in this case, she complained to the gender sensitivity cell or something, and they immediately asked her to come in for a meeting, which she did not. She was like, "Why am I having to explain this? I have said what I have to say. Why is the onus repeatedly on the people who, they should have called the department for a meeting, right?" So it's really unfair that the only way is if that we're really made to suffer for every time we voice our opinions. Yeah.
Okay, so let's end on something solid. So this is something that I personally wanted to ask. Sometimes when I'm writing or when I'm, you know, producing content, I have some unconscious biases, right? So how do you, as a writer editor, try to confront such biases that you might have?
I think the brave thing to do, which even I'm really afraid, I mean, it really terrifies me sometimes also, just asking for feedback, and asking for feedback from people who won't just tell you, this is great, this is great. So I'm not very great at that, but I've seen, people who are in experience junior to me so proactively. In fact, even Suchita was saying that you always look for feedback. So I don't think we were super proactive about that with the Life of Science. Some feedback did come, but I think it's really brave and it's really beneficial if you do ask for feedback. Not to say that you have to take every feedback seriously, but it is useful to consider feedback, and at least that will help you realize what matters to you and what doesn't. Maybe somebody gives you some negative feedback and you think about it, and then you realize, okay, they're saying this, but I don't really care because maybe this is not something that I agree with, and that helps you understand your craft, your values a lot more. So yeah, I think asking for asking other people to read it, and it's important to take note when you are feeling insecure about something you wrote. Maybe you feel it's some, maybe it is your wisdom trying to tell you something. So it could be that maybe there is, you need to probe this a little more. Why are you feeling this way? Maybe this piece is missing something fundamental that is making you feel uncomfortable about it. And it takes courage to sort of, really question yourself there, and maybe face some answers that you're not it's not the easiest thing to confront, but it could just be, you have to trust your instincts. So it could it could be something telling you that this is not completely right, or yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So to summarize, just ask for feedback when you think you might be, when you're not sure about something. Yeah, awesome. Okay, I think that concludes Q&A. Suchita, back to you.
Yes, thank you so much, Nandita, for taking your time for chatting with us. I hope you had fun. So, do you have anything else to say, some concluding remarks, or if we might have missed covering some points? So, share something like that with us.
Sure. I mean, I think that, when if you want to get into science media, whether it's science communication or science journalism, I think that something that we don't talk about a lot is editing, and the role of having a good editor, and having because I think that the editorial role, even though it's not so much in the front stage, it's not, sadly, it won't win you any awards, and it won't get you a lot of limelight. It is really important. I think people of privilege, which I consider myself especially, should be willing to you know should also should be willing to, basically, I mean, we keep talking about passing the mic. So one way to do it is also by willing to sort of step off the stage, and really think about what other stories could be tell could give up your space for probably stories that haven't been told before, and realize, have that consciousness of when you are taking up too much space, and maybe there are more important books. I think I just lost power, but yeah.
Oops. Okay.
Yeah. So I think something that I would tell is that also, start recognizing whether maybe you're not the best writer, but you could still be a really good editor, and yeah. So that's what I would say.
Okay, wonderful. It's very heartening to hear from you that you don't have to be a great writer to be an editor, because I think that's one of the myths that people have, and I
Yeah.
also realized it after a long time. So yes, thank you so much, Nandita, for taking the time and joining us on a Saturday evening in the middle of a holiday for you. But that's
No worries. I was
very
looking forward.
wonderful.
Thank
So,
you.
yes, and for the audience, if you have missed the live session, you don't have to worry. All of this episode and the two episodes that we had earlier with Spurti Raman and Somdata Kara are available on both our YouTube channel and LinkedIn page. So you can rewatch that anytime. And the next episode is happening on the alternate Saturday, that is on 28th of August, and we have Ipsa Jain as our guest. She's a wonderful Sci artist, and she's also been associated with the Life of Science. So we probably get a different peek into the Life of Science and also her journey as an independent freelancer, right? So do watch out for all the updates, and thank you for joining us today. Also, just a quick update on other things happening at Cyrio. Next week we have a SciComm Foster, that is a hands-on workshop with Manasi Apte, where we are talking about storytelling for science communicators. So you're going to have a lot of fun because she's planned a lot of hands-on activities and group discussions. So make sure you don't miss that. You can find all the details on our website. Yes, we look forward to see you all at the workshop and the live show on the alternate Saturday. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much, Shweta, for co-hosting this show. And thanks again, Nandita, for joining us this evening.
Thank you. Thanks, Shweta, Suchita.
And yes, an advanced happy Independence Day to all of you all watching from India. Thank you. Okay.